Hello, 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 and welcome to Updog Sports Talk. My name is Matt Miller, and joining me today is a whole panel of people. We have Justin McGovern, co-host. We have intern Tones, and we have special guests, Chicago Joe. What's going on, fellas?
I like how Chicago Joe is just becoming his moniker now.
It kind of works though.
It works. It works. I think I like intern Tones a little bit better though.
No. Chicago Joe. That's all you.
There you go. I mean, guys, like football is. Preseason is. We're 4 days away from preseason. You know.
Technically, it already passed.
Hall of Fame game. Sure.
We all forget about the Hall of Fame game,
But they don't broadcast that, right? So it's like, call me.
Justin, what are we talking about?
Well, as you can tell by the fact that we have Chicago Joe on the show, we are talking about the NFC North. And look at that. Friends don't let friends be Packers fans. We'll see if any Packers fans have an answer for that one. Matt, who are we, and what are we about?
We are Updog Sports Talk. We stick up for the little guy. Hence why Joe's here. And we got our start during COVID. Some news broke today that ESPN and the NFL, or I guess it was yesterday, they kind of have a partnership deal where the NFL gets 10% of ESPN and ESPN gets NFL Network. It's pretty much just becoming a one company, one entertainment company kind of media, and we're here to throw a wrench in that whole thing. We like sticking up for the little guy. We don't just like talking about the Patrick Mahomeses and Lamar Jacksons, Joe Burrows, and whatnot. We like to talk about the third string quarterback for the Chicago Bears. We like to talk about FCS all the way up, and NAIA. We'll talk about it all. So sit back, relax. Updog Sports Talk is here to put you to sleep with the NFC North.
No offense to Joe Burrow though. Joe Cool all the way.
Yeah. So I guess we can just kick this thing off. Joe, Bears. Let's hear it. You got any thoughts about him?
Ben Johnson's the guy, man. I don't know if Caleb Williams will work out or not, but Ben Johnson, I think the whole demeanor he's brought to the organization in the building, it's night and day difference. The confidence, I don't want to say like Belichickian, but it's like he has this kind of like hard-nosed, hard-pressed like attitude about like we're going to do hard work, and it's not going to be fun, and it's going to suck, but then it's gonna prove out to like when wins come our way. So I think a lot of people have become enraptured and enamored with him, and it's showing in the city. There's a lot of hope. Again, like everyone wants the hopium, right? Like right in the veins, but we can only hope for more. So bring it on.
Well, they are making strides. They addressed a bunch of needs in the offseason. They brought in
huge strides.
Say what you want about Zacharias. He's a solid number 3, number 4 receiver. Brought in Miles Boykin. They drafted Luther Burden III. I can imagine he'd get the nod. Right now he's listed as second on the depth chart, but they brought in Joe Tooney, Drew Dahlman, Jonah Jackson, 3 studs to kind of shore up the offensive line. You brought in Grady Jarrett, Deo Adebingbo, and then some guys here and there to kind of fill the void. Justin, who'd they draft?
Yeah, Justin, who did they draft?
Justin, you're muted.
He's going to town though.
Come on, Justin.
He's teeing off right now.
Whoops. So you mentioned Luther Burden. That was a really good pickup. Like, I thought that was a huge steal for the Bears. He was a guy that I kind of had pegged as someone who could potentially go late in the first round. And I know potentially some character issues may have gotten thrown out there about him. When Connor Cook got hurt last year, things kind of went south for Missouri for a few games. And he kind of got docked for that. But I think he's going to end up being a pretty good receiver for the Bears. Colston Loveland fills a huge void at tight end. I'm very excited to see how he turns out. I know intern Tones is excited about him as a Michigan man. But yeah, he looks like pretty good. Kyle Monungai, the running back out of Rutgers, he reminds me a little bit of a bit more of an athletic, coming from the same place. He can do a little bit more out of the backfield. I mean, Pacheco kind of developed into that, but coming out of college, Monungai is a little bit more ready for that. I think he was very underrated too in the 7th round. And then I'm a huge fan of Shamar Turner. I think he was a little bit more productive than some of the other Texas A&M linemen that went ahead of him. And then Za Frazier out of the UTSA Roadrunners was a guy who was very underrated that I was very high on this draft. So overall, like, I think the Bears did a really good job in this draft, giving Caleb Williams more weapons to work with, kind of building a little bit more depth in the offensive line, hitting more depth in the defensive line, and then also at corners. They made a lot of good moves here. I'm a big fan.
Definitely.
Yeah, and
Tony.
don't forget they brought in Dennis Allen as defensive coordinator. I think
On
that
top
was
of that.
that was huge. I mean,
Definitely.
not only does he bring head coach experience to support Ben Johnson, but I mean he's a really solid defense coordinator in his own right. So, I mean, Ben Johnson's got a good staff here. Everything kind of in the front office seems to be going their way, but I mean,
And honestly, that's
Well-
that's the coaching staff across the board, though. Like you want to talk about experience, they brought it right. Between that, all of their coaches are not first-time coaches in terms of what they do and how they're doing it. Right? They brought in everybody, and it's a solid staff overall. So it's well done at the very least.
It's huge because I felt like last year and the years past, like they've had some coaching staffs that are pretty overwhelmed. It felt like.
Yeah, to say the least.
well, Tony, who did they lose? You probably weren't expecting that question from me, but
No. Yeah, I don't have that information, but I will pull it up.
they did lose Keenan Allen.
Keenan Allen.
I wouldn't say
Was the
that.
big one.
I wouldn't say with his production that was a huge loss. It was the experience in the locker room that you're losing. Joe, anybody off the top of your head that they lost?
Keenan Allen was the big player for me. I was trying to think of other people that have rotated out.
They kind of got rid of who they needed to on defense. They didn't really get rid of anyone big.
No.
Not off the top of my head, at least. But I mean, they're putting together a solid defense. I mean, not quite what they had a handful of years ago, and not quite what they had definitely in the early 2000s. But
Right.
they're starting to bring that Bears defensive grit back.
True. No,
Can we
it's-
talk about how, wasn't it before the trade deadline last year that the Bears traded for Montez Sweat from the Commanders?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a big move. And then don't forget last
Very
year
last
was when
minute
they
move.
brought in Tremaine Edwards and TJ. I'm sorry, Tremaine Edmonds and TJ.
Tremaine Edmonds. Yeah, I get them confused. I was bringing them to a friend.
Edmonds, Edwards.
Who are you talking about? I'm like,
They're
what?
also
Oh.
like next to each other on the depth chart.
Well, and they were also signed at the same time too, so they came in around the same time, so it was just kind of blended. The only thing I can remember is that TJ Edwards is a Chicago homer, so that grounds me a little bit. But that's all I can. I always flip them. I always flip them.
I do think that Jalen Johnson, who's hurt right now, just for everyone's edification, and Kyler Gordon, I think that's a dangerous duo. I think both those guys
Definitely.
And then you put Kevin Bayard, who has a lot of experience back there. You put him behind. So I think Dennis Allen has the pieces to make this team look great.
Definitely.
I think the biggest headline is Caleb Williams going to get this done? It's now or never. I mean, this is when we find out.
And I think that's where we're trying to figure out a lot of pieces in terms of things. Like, for instance, as of late, we were kind of still, Jerry Jones is currently juggling Micah Parsons right now, right? And there's speculation and chatter that like Bears could make the move to sell the farm, get Micah Parsons, and be good for at least a couple years while assuming we exercise Caleb's 5th-year option and everything goes hunky dory that way. But it's hard to say, it's there's so much possibility, but I think it kind of reminds me of Justin Fields' sophomore season, where and I guess again Caleb's sophomore season too, right? But at the same time, it's all kind of bunkering down on is this the guy? We're giving him the weapons. We got him from Madunze. You got him a line. You got him a decent defense. We have a former defensive head coach that knows how to run things and caters to that. And everything seems to be lined up and teed up in a way that is available and ready for the taking. You didn't just get a tight end in Coastal 11. You got a suitable weapon that can that is versatile, that can block, that can catch, that can do a lot of things and complement the offense in a lot of ways. And those are certifiably excellent moves. And now we just have to kind of see where everything else goes from there.
Yeah. How do you think the run game will look?
Great question. It's hard. I think it's hard to say. There's a lot of speculation that DeAndre Swift is still kind of lined up where he is.
Don't forget that he and Ben Johnson did not get along together in Detroit.
And yes, there is that.
That was exactly where my question was coming from.
and that's always the thought, right? Because the speculation was DeAndre Swift left the Lions to land in Chicago and be yeah, whatever, let's do something about it. And then lo and behold, we flip around and Ben Johnson's right back there. So it's hard to contemplate whether from what I understand, there's no bad blood, right? It's business. Football is a business. Football is another industry of business in terms of things. So you have to be professional. You have to go through those moments. And I mean, who knows, right? But at the same time, the backfield itself, rumors are, Roshan could definitely step up. And you kind of wonder how things can be addressed from a fantasy perspective. I feel like DeAndre Swift has always been the catching back, so that could still be something that's relevant in some regard, but you never know.
Tony kind of perked up a little bit there. He's our fantasy guru.
Who?
I dabble here and there. I think the biggest addition really was Case Keenum as a backup.
I was going to touch on that too. Getting Case Keenum behind Caleb Williams. Right now he's technically third on the depth chart, but Tyson Baggett gonna really Bagent, whatever. He's from the same area of that my wife used to teach.
There you go.
Yeah, so
the Baguette himself.
Yeah.
Do you know? do you know? You want to know some fun fact about him? His dad is one of the top world arm wrestling champions.
That's pretty cool.
He owns a bar. And all they do is hold arm wrestling tournaments.
That's pretty sweet.
That is incredible.
It's world renowned apparently. It is so weird and wild. Yes.
Might have to stop by there.
Right.
I love that.
Get your ass whooped in Chicago.
But his dad if you just look him up, his dad has so much swagger. People just talk to him about football. He's just yeah, no, we're not talking about football. It's let's talk about something else. It's just kind of wild. It's a crazy human being. But yeah, sorry, side tangent.
Case Keenum comes with a wealth of knowledge.
Definitely. And experience.
Well, he also led college football in passing when he was many moons ago in college football.
At the Houston Cougars.
Yeah.
I think that's in touchdown, and I think he led the league in touchdowns or had a record in touchdowns. And I think technically, even though Tyson Bagent I think he came from Shepherd, and I might be wrong. I believe Tyson Bagent broke the record on touchdowns, but I think technically it doesn't count because it's D2. Technically.
They'll put an asterisk next to it, or they'll find a way to keep Case Keenum there. But, Case Keenum is one of those guys that when he's done playing football will probably be a good offensive coordinator.
Definitely.
He comes with a wealth of knowledge, and I think that's exactly what Caleb Williams needs. But can he be their first 4,040 TD passer?
He was close. He got to, by the end of the game 17 last year, was 30, off the top of my head, I want to say 3,600, 3,700. So he wasn't too far out. And so I think it's there. And think about some of those games. Some of those games were not good. They were not orchestrated well. Scheming was awful. So the hope is it's there, right? So at the very least, like, do something that like Jay Cutler wasn't even able to do, right? So I think the deck is stacked and very much in favor of something. Hopefully at least decent fantasy football players, but we'll find out.
Well, one of the things that we touched on last year on this show was that Caleb Williams had more of a mindset for big home run play rather than finding the open guy.
And that still kind of came out to play a little bit here and there. And so my assumption is that Ben Johnson's going to like basically like just whip that into shape and make sure that, understanding from a camp perspective, the big thing was they weren't letting up. So like, for instance, how they would scheme a play, right? And the idea was that like, okay, Montez is there. We're just going to let him go. And you're going to have to deal with that. You're going to be pressured, and you have to deal with that. Ready, set, go.
The thing that I've learned about camp is they'll actually play, like, they'll call the plays, but they'll call the plays that one side will definitely win.
For
so,
sure.
like, if you're running 4 verts on second down and you run cover 2, some dude's going to be open.
Definitely.
So they do stuff like that. But I do like hearing that they're just letting Montez Sweat go because, I mean, he's going to be under pressure. Even though they brought in 3 offensive linemen, he's still going to be under pressure a lot.
Definitely.
One thing that I noticed last year is he does hold the ball for a really long time. So not all those sacks were all on the offensive line.
No.
But the offensive line didn't really help much.
It's Swiss cheese, right? So, I mean, like, you hope for what you can, but, I mean... and you really hope for like things that like turn out better, like Tevin Jenkins, for instance, right? There was a lot of hope him coming out of the draft that like he would really turn into a guy. Shifted from tackle to guard, right? Still kind of made it work, but wasn't necessarily free from injuries. So we didn't necessarily have a nailed down center, right? I think that's the biggest thing is Drew Dahlman comes in as a force of nature in terms of understanding and experience and scheme and terms too, right? Like he understands. I want to say. Oh, that thought slipped out of my mind. But anyways,
Must have been a lie.
You basically have like you don't just have good players, like you have guys who are veterans that have been there and know what to do.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. No. And actually, I was going to say inside zone. There we go. So Drew Dahlman comes from that schematic. That's how Ben Johnson clicks. And I think that is all going to come into play very, very relevantly. And I can only hope, and you can look at it from like maybe say like a Drew Brees perspective where like Drew Brees was excellent because at the very least he had a decent center and 2 guards that could line up and block him and put down center so he could at least sling it when he needed to, right? So the hope is that everything comes together in that regard and keep our fingers crossed.
Well,
everyone stays healthy.
They have a lot going for them. They have a bunch new weapons on offense. They have a young quarterback. They have a young head coach. They have experience in the coaching staff. They are kind of putting the defense together now. You have a huge market. You have a very, very, very hungry fan base.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's time for the $4.5 billion stadium. And if they get that, I think all the cards are going to be open. It'll be the Bears, like... It'll kind of open everything up for the Bears to kind of.
It's the hope, man. I think there's a lot of speculation on whether they still have. I think they're still using Arlington as like a trump card, more or less. But I think more signs are pointing towards that than getting back into the city. And I think ultimately speaking, it's a way for them to own the stadium. It's a way to establish other franchises in the area, and it plays a key role in that community too. Accessibility could be another different question, but there's been a lot of buzz up behind it, and I don't think it's totally letting up yet.
Well, Bears currently have the smallest stadium.
Yes.
With one of the most populous cities in North America.
Yep.
And like a lot of the complaints that I've heard from other fans were, other than the subway, it's hard to get downtown. So to get to the game is hard. I think it will make it a little bit easier with Arlington. But I mean,
Justin's done it. Justin knows.
Yeah,
it's not direct.
Not in the slightest. What happens to Soldier Field if this were to happen and they go to a new stadium in Arlington?
I think they'd pivot. There's still like other like avenues they'd pursue, like the Chicago Fire. They moved from Bridgeport to Soldier Field as well. So there's different avenues that I'm sure they're kind of looking into, and they're trying to hedge their bets in case.
Well, the old Soldier Field is kind of still there, isn't it? Like
technically,
underneath.
yeah. It's they built onto it for the most part, yeah.
So I mean, technically, they could just disassemble it, bring back the old Soldier Field.
Yeah, just chuck it into the lake,
Yeah.
That'll do something.
I mean, Caleb Williams, we've touched on this a little bit, but Caleb Williams, sophomore season, we had talked a little bit in our AFC South episode that CJ Stroud last year took a step back and couldn't hit receivers up the middle. Do you think Caleb Williams hits that sophomore slump? And if so, like, do you kind of just expect the same thing as last season, or?
I don't. I'd like to say I'd like to think that last season was a slump. You didn't have good direction. You didn't have good coaching. Your offensive coordinator didn't want to sit down with you and watch film and break it down like that. Those are big question marks and major red flags, right? So at the very least, in someone like Ben Johnson, you get someone who's going to want to like talk chalk and understand what's going on and like giving you a breakdown. He's got that computer science background, right? So like I would say at the very least, like devil's in the details, and Ben Johnson's on that side. So I could only hope from those perspectives that is something that can at least bolster Caleb and get him to a point where he's at least competent. I'm hoping for, at minimum, a step above Trevor Williams. That's all you really need. You just need a decent quarterback who can make passes down the middle, short yard game, long yard game, and be able to play different sides of the ball and make that easy, or at least doable, right? Get it to your playmaker, have them make the play, you get it there, right?
I think when we look at the investments that they've made, they really focused on making sure he's not the third all-time sacked QB. Like they're trying to help that out a little bit. And my feeling of it is, and I haven't paid super close attention to training camp or even to Caleb Williams in particular, but just as I think of the narrative, right? You're kind of stunted in your first year. You're frustrated, but you did get time under your belt, and so you're almost front loading all of the pain that the NFL can give you into the very first season, and then you kind of bounce back. If he feels like he has more to give, he may come out hungrier.
True. No, and I think so. Speaking of narratives, right? Like you have to understand that like I'm sure you guys heard about this past season or past off season, but so a story came out about like how like Caleb Williams was considering like voiding the draft and like opting to go to like CFL or taking the year off or something to like not to basically get away from the Bears. And like once that kind of like hit the fan, like the media market like took it in and like chewed it up, and there was like a lot of fascination behind it. And then like Ben Johnson gets on the podium and is like, and like it's like one of the first questions they shoot off is like, hey, like what would you think about this narrative, and like do you think that like built into Caleb, or like would you what'd you think about it? And he's like, I love it. I think it tells like the best story, right? You go to a place where like you're down, you're not necessarily thinking that things are going to go well. Your first season doesn't go well. You're expecting to kind of like hit the ground running, and it doesn't go well for you, right? But then you give the chance to turn things around. You go for passing yards and being a record holder for a franchise that like has a lot of belief and hope behind it, and like that fuels a lot of people. Like Ben Johnson like handled those types of situations perfectly, and I think that's the tone that the team is really hitting. Is what we're doing is not necessarily going to be easy or easy to come by, but the idea is that like the harder we work, the easier things will become, and we're going to pay off in that regard.
Where do you see the Bears finishing?
That's a great question. I would say I don't.
Maybe
so
realistic
hard.
Expectations.
NFC North is such a fist fight. It is such a fist fight. I feel like the NFC North and AFC North kind of like have that overlap in a way, because it's not easy. Realistically, it's tough. I would argue overall, I think the Lions slip. They don't have the top-notch coordinators that they did before, so I think we'd have to, if I would like kind of rank the NFC North as a whole, I might say probably Vikings, Lions, Green Bay, Bears, realistically. Now, take that with a grain of salt, right? Because between the Lions, Vikings, and Packers all went to the playoffs last season, right? So I could make the argument that like Bears could be on the bubble for that, and you never know what could go their way.
Well, that is the Bears.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
We do have to cover other teams, but
we are whelmed.
we do stick up for the little guy, which is why we spent a ton of time talking about the Bears. I mean, Caleb Williams doesn't need to do a whole lot to get a statue outside the stadium.
No. Just winning record at this point.
Yeah.
Probably.
Well, we're going to move on to our next team. Joe, are you hanging out?
Yeah, for a little bit.
Okay. Well, it is the arch rival, the Green Bay Packers.
Had to be.
Oh, yeah. Had to be.
Of course.
So
Pull that up again.
Packers didn't do a whole lot in terms of free agency. They brought in Aaron Banks at left guard. Solid, but I think there's still room for improvement for him. The rest, and Nate Hobbs at corner, Isaiah Simmons at will. The rest were just backups. They didn't really touch on a whole lot. So are we just hoping that they stay healthy, or what are we doing with the Packers here?
I feel like, sorry, I don't know if anyone else had an opinion on that, but I feel like the Packers are relatively set. I think they are in a type of like Sean McVay situation where if Matt LaFleur like coaches his total butt off, like the team shows for it, right? Like what was it? Kind of into the early mid of last season, right? Things fell apart, right? Like you're really hoping that things kind of stay together, and they didn't, and people get injuries. But at the same time, like if like you expect things to not necessarily go your way, and the Packers really turned around, right? They made the playoffs, and you're fist fighting for a spot with the Vikings, and you still pull through, right? So it's wild to think that like they despite what happened to them last season, they were still competent enough to kind of break it into the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. And probably looking at, I think the next step here is to look at the draft a little bit. This is where I was very intrigued, because in years past we've seen the Packers go really defense heavy in the draft, and that's what we expected. And then they surprised us all by going wide receiver in the first round for the first time in who knows how long. Bringing in Matthew Golden as their guy to finally take the top off of defenses, because, you know, obviously they've had a lot of good receivers. They've lacked someone great. We'll see if Golden becomes that guy. Savion Williams is a nice, intriguing target as well out of TCU. He's a guy that you can use in multiple ways, kind of giving them some more tools in the toolbox, if you will. Anthony Belton helps in the offensive line. They're trying to pull that together. They also need, you know, last year's first round pick Jordan Morgan to kind of pull together a little bit more. And then you kind of look at the defensive side. Like they hit some guys in the later rounds. There's not really anyone that sticks out to me as a really good steal at this current point. But overall, like I like that they finally tried to step it up a little bit more on the offensive side of the ball, because we did see that happen where injuries hit them late in the year and the offense really trailed off. And now, obviously, if Jordan Love's playing banged up, like there's nothing you could do about that. That's just bad luck, and that kind of hurts the whole team. But you give him more weapons, and you're kind of giving the offense a much better floor.
When you look at the Packers roster, they've done a really good job in the draft. Mm-hmm. I mean,
especially O-line. Always O-line. You take a third or fourth round O-line, and they'll turn into first round quality.
And front seven. I mean, they got Quay Walker first round, Luca Van Ness first round, Devontae Wyatt first round, Kenny Clark first round, Rashawn Gary first round, all on their defensive line linebackers. So, and then you can throw in Edgerrin Cooper in their second rounder. So they've spent a lot of capital and have hit on all those picks. So I mean, like, they aren't bringing in a whole lot of big names. Could they spend a little bit more on a receiver? Maybe. But I think their mantra right now is just get guys who can do really good at their job. They don't have to be Swiss Army knife. They can just do their job. And I think that's their wide receiver room.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like that last year as well. You know, you're looking at a team, you expect to see a clear wide receiver one. I don't know that there was a clear one, you know. Some popped off at different points in the year, but, you know, everybody got to eat. So it'll be interesting to see, you know, with an investment of a first-round draft pick, you know, how well they mold that and nurture it into a long-term success.
Well, I think their wide receiver room is set. I don't think there's a whole lot of room for some of these other guys because Dobbs has proven himself. Reed has proven himself. Watson has proven himself. And then Wicks has proven himself. And then you add in two rookies, Savion Williams being one of them, and Matthew Golden being the other. I think they spend a decent amount of capital. I think their wide receiver room is set. This is like they're all kind of around the same talent and can do things. So I think Packers are just nailing the draft and then just hoping they get it right. And I think they've gotten it right.
I wonder what their plan is with Mecole Hardman, who was obviously the 2020 in the 23 playoffs, the Bills' defensive MVP against the Chiefs. I guess maybe they plan to have him as a returner. I don't see any other use for him.
Do you mean Super Bowl champion Mecole Hardman?
Well, yes, but in that Bills playoff game, the Bills couldn't stop a nosebleed. So the only time they came up with stops was when Mecole Hardman fumbled.
I know, right? Tell me about it.
And then low key, they still have Josh Jacobs, and if Jordan Love can stay healthy, I mean, they don't have to do a whole lot on offense. I think they have a really good defense, and I think they can get away with like more of a balanced approach. You hand the ball off a bunch and you throw a bunch over the top, and I think that can be their offense.
I think one of the big keys on defense is going to be like you talked about the first rounders. Lucas Van Ness is the only one of those that hasn't really stepped up yet. He's kind of a guy that we need to look at. He's at year 3. It's his time to step up. If he steps up and becomes the force off the edge that they expect him to be when they drafted him, that will be very big for this defense.
You guys want to know some drama?
Always.
Sure. Spill it.
So Lucas Van Ness has a girlfriend who is Cole Kmet's sister on the Bears.
Kind of like a AJ Hawk, Brady Quinn thing.
Pretty much. So game days are very awkward.
Is she gonna wear the split jersey?
I have no clue. I have not seen any images of her, but they've been dating since he got drafted by the Packers. So there's been some interfeud type items apparently, but apparently it's all in good jest. Yeah, don't know.
Well, I think I think they didn't really have to do a whole lot. I think they have a lot of players under contract that can do stuff for them. They just had some small holes here and there, and I think they filled definitely the receiver room. I mean, from a Bears fan, I guess the perspective.
So maybe we'll put it this way. I think one of the big keys this year is Jordan Love has to take the next step as quarterback. So let's kind of pull around the room here. Joe, you can go first, then Tony, then Matt, and then myself. Do you guys think Jordan Love gets it done this year?
I think Jordan Love's already made the next step. Relatively speaking, I think he just has to stay healthy. And I think that's a whole other battle in of itself. I mean, he came out slinging that first year after Aaron Rodgers left, and like he really made a presence and name for himself. And I think he solidified himself. You hear Bears fans like crying all over Chicagoland because for the third decade in a row, Packers seemingly have all they need in a quarterback. Like, I mean, Bears have been through like what, like 20, 25 different quarterbacks now. So yeah, we're all crying in corners, right? We're dealing with it in our own ways, and we're just trying to stay mentally positive and just hanging on. Again, like, you really hope like Caleb Williams does it, but at the same time, you can't help but just be like super jealous that like you look at the Packers and be like, you're on your third quarterback in 3 decades. It's like, come on. That's not fair. That's not fair at all.
Yeah, I think Jordan Love is one of those guys. He's kind of, I don't know that he's like really in your face about it, right? Like he kind of seems like he's doing well, but you don't hear a lot of storylines. There's not like, oh, he's breaking out. There's not a lot of hype around him.
No storyline.
He played 15 games last year, 63% completion, 3,400 yards almost, 25 touchdowns. So, I mean, he's getting it done. When you, after Matt was talking about the receivers, I was looking at their wide receiver room, and, Jaden Reed had over 1,000 yards when you combined rushing. But then other people were eating too, the Christian Watsons, the Romeo Dobbs, and the Dontavion Wicks. So, I think they have the weapons. I think they are trying to protect him. So then the next thing is just to do the thing,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
It's my turn, Justin. You literally said I go after Tony. I think this is a year where, like, because Jordan Love is a guy that just kind of fades into mid-pack. You just kind of forget that he's there sometimes. And then all of a sudden he comes out and then kind of balls out and gets the Packers into the playoffs. I think one of the things, other than staying healthy, is consistency. I think now that he has a few more weapons in the offense, I think he can be a little bit more consistent, because that's what we saw from Brett Favre. You knew how many interceptions he was going to throw in a year, but you also knew how many yards he was going to throw. And then Aaron Rodgers, hey, what's going on, Bobby?
What's up, guys? How we doing?
We've made it to the Packers.
I'm sorry.
Bears and Packers all we've gotten through so far. We're just saying that, like, Jordan Love, like, this year, if he can stay healthy, he might be able to get, like, pretty far into the playoffs. Or at least that's what I'm saying. I mean, against the Eagles, they only lost 22-10, whereas most of the rest of the teams, Eagles put up some big points. So a lot has to be said about that.
Yeah. And they went on a pretty decent run in the 2023 playoffs. What I was wondering is, like, can we start to see him play to a level where everyone has him consensus top 10 on the list? That's kind of where the next step lays for him. But I think he could get there. I think Matthew Golden is kind of a good piece that can kind of help them along the way.
So I guess question for you guys then, kind of poking into that a little bit, like in terms of like maybe fantasy relevance, where like does someone become the guy, or does this become more like Kansas City Chiefs 2.0, where like there's no guy, and relatively speaking, the only person you probably want that's fantasy relevant is the quarterback, and you can't really like bank on like having Golden or Watson or someone like necessarily nail to be a consistent like receiver or big or boom or bust maybe type player instead.
Yeah, I think like Jordan Love, he's efficient.
Right.
Not consistent, but efficient.
Definitely.
So I think that's the name of the game up in Green Bay. You need efficiency to do well there, and I think he learned a lot from Aaron Rodgers, and I think from a fantasy perspective, he may not be close to the top. I would probably have him be my second tier quarterback. Like, if you have like a solid receiving room, you could get by with Jordan Love a little bit, but I wouldn't bank on Jordan Love.
Jordan Love secretly and quietly was a monster in fantasy the last couple years. And I say that because when I look at their, wide receiver room, I'm kind of like you, Joe, like, who's the guy? Who is that number one that they're throwing to? And, they may have emerged, but it hasn't been one of the big names. So that's always kind of a question mark. to see if that relationship stays.
Very much so.
Well, I mean, we can kind of wrap up with a neat little bow. The Packers. I think we've covered all the bases with them. They're pretty short and sweet. Unless Bobby, do you have a perspective of the Packers?
Well, like I'll say, I came into this conversation a little late, but it revolves around obviously Jordan Love, his consistency and the accuracy that he has, but the running game is so huge for them, and Josh Jacobs could have a very solid year once again. He's a really Jonathan.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much to say about the Packers. They are what they are. Not much is going to change that. So, I guess going to kind of a question mark in the division is the Minnesota Vikings. They kind of came out of nowhere with Sam Darnold, and they were four loss team. And
The best wild card team of all time.
Wait, time out. Came
I
out
was
of nowhere.
getting at that, but I couldn't remember.
They just come out of nowhere. They were resurrected. Like JJ McCarthy got injured, and they're like, "Oh no! Like we are so done." Nowhere is like an understatement. They truly like popped up out of the grave that was like the ground, and were like ready and standing.
Well,
God bless Kevin O'Connell.
They noticed the shortcomings from last season. I mean,
I think we all did.
Yeah. So they dipped into
You're welcome.
Indianapolis and just stole two offensive linemen, Ryan Kelly and Will Fries. Then they go get Jonathan Allen, probably the most underrated signing in the offseason. They get Javon Hargrave and Isaiah Rodgers. Jeff Okuda. They got quite a few guys. Rondale Moore. They kind of filled a lot of needs with free agency. So, Justin, how did they draft?
So I like their first round pick. They went to that offensive line once again. You mentioned already signed the Colts guys, but then drafting Donovan Jackson, another big, massive man at guard to help them carve out run lanes, and also just make sure that we're not seeing them get sacked 10 times in a game in the playoffs this year, because that was just a giant mess last year in front of everybody. Ty Felton was kind of interesting receiver out of Maryland they picked up. I think he's a guy that could maybe prove to be a pretty good depth piece at least, or someone who could even become a high upside playmaker down the line. I'm very curious to see how that develops. And then overall, the rest of them, kind of some more depth pieces a little bit. I was a little bit surprised to see Kobe King go so low, but other than that, like I think they didn't have a lot of picks, and they did a decent job with them.
Yeah, they only had 4 picks. But getting back to the receiver room real quick, just a little footnote here. Jordan Addison suspended 3 games. So Felton and Moore are probably going to get quite a bit of playing time with Addison out. And so McCarthy's going to have to get on the same page as those guys if they want to get a good early start to the season.
I've heard he's tearing up camp, though. People are saying he's the real deal. And I'm not just saying I'm not just saying that because I'm a Michigan fan. Maybe like 5 to 10%, but I've heard that he's been cooking. And fun fact, when I played high school ball, I played next to Ryan Kelly.
Ryan Kelly?
Yeah, and like if you looked at us, couldn't be more different. You know, short, squat, little 5'8". Broski's
Don't
like
sell yourself short. Don't sell yourself short. Come on.
6'7", can lift a school bus. You know, like.
I feel like that guy had to duck to get into classrooms, I thought.
Yeah, and he threw me like 5 yards in a scrimmage. He was just like, "Who's this guy? Let me just get him out of here." I mean, one of the things that is a plus for Minnesota is Kevin O'Connell is a quarterback. He can make anybody look good. He makes Kirk Cousins look top 8 in the NFL. So not like if McCarthy struggles, you have Sam Howell, who, in my opinion, is still going to turn out to be something.
Still another hope.
Yeah, still
No
hold
Carolina
on.
hope.
3 years running, more than that even, I think.
Yeah. So I mean, Sam Howell, smart guy. You bring him in, get a little bit of competition going, but you know that JJ McCarthy is going to be the quarterback. Aaron Jones, very versatile. Bring in Jordan Mason, who did a lot in San Fran. They got a team, but we'll see what they can do. I mean, it's all on JJ McCarthy's shoulders at this point.
So here's an interesting question I'll throw out to our guest here, because we have a Bears and a Lions fan on the show. What weaknesses do you think, Joe, you can go first, and then Bobby, you can go after Joe. What weaknesses do you see from the Vikings that you feel like your team could take advantage of? What strengths do the Vikings have that worry you?
I think when healthy, I think the wide receiver core is a massive threat, and you can't deny that. I can't necessarily say. I'd like to say call JJ a weakness at this point, just considering we don't necessarily know what and how things will pan out. Granted, he is, again, coming off a year-long injury, right? So we'll see how that necessarily pans out, how he does coming back into form. And relatively speaking, he's on the younger side, right? So he isn't necessarily like, he's more spring chicken than not. But at the same time, I think that allowed him a whole year to get mentally prepped. So I don't want to call JJ McCarthy a weakness. I'll probably end up biting my tongue in probably a month or so, and we'll go from there. But relatively speaking, things to take advantage of. Not a whole lot. I feel like the Packers, along with the Vikings, have relatively set teams, and it's really hard to necessarily nick. You can nick and cut here and there, but there's no big chink in the armor where you can necessarily take advantage of that fully.
Bobby, any thoughts?
Well, I mean, any team that's coached by Kevin O'Connell is going to be ahead of a lot of other teams because he's one of the best coaches in the
Very
NFL.
true.
And then you have Justin Jefferson, who's the best wide receiver in the NFL. You're going to be in a good place. I think a potential weakness for them could be the secondary, where they have some older guys. So you kind of go through the process, and you got to just see like, okay, are they going to fall off a little bit? That could potentially happen. And speaking from experience, if you have Jeff Okudah playing, you're going to struggle.
Bit of a curse, they say.
Yeah.
I was hoping one of you guys would bring that up because, like, if I mean, bringing in Jonathan Allen, you have Harrison Phillips, Javon Hargrave, you have quite a few guys that can, and don't forget about Jonathan Grenard. You have quite a few guys that can get after the quarterback there. So if they can if the offensive line can hold their own, I think that these guys are burnable. But I mean, Brian Flores, defense coordinator, very smart when it comes to secondary. So he'll whip these guys into
And blitz
shape.
happy.
Very
blitz
blitz.
happy.
Yes.
I don't think anybody loves blitzing more than it.
Yeah, it really makes the quarterback think.
Yeah, and Harrison Smith still doing it at a high level. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, another one of
Absolutely.
those Notre Dame guys that Matt was excited to talk about, I'm sure.
Yeah, Notre Dame guy, got to throw him in there somehow. But he is still one of the best safeties in the league. So
There you go. Locking it down.
I think one of the big things with the Vikings throughout their entire history has been special teams. So I guess the biggest question mark, in my opinion, is how are their special teams going to look? Can they get consistency from the kicker? I mean,
They've been struggling at kicker since the Blair Walsh project.
Even before that, dude, since Gary Anderson missed that kick, I feel like their special teams has been, you know?
Yeah, and it looks like Ty Felton is someone that they're planning to have a kick returner, and then Rondale Moore kind of brings something to the punt return game, so we'll see how that works out.
Yeah, I mean, the Vikings are a team they're either going to be really good or middle of the road. I don't think they're going to be terrible just because their defense, I think, can hold their own, and I think they have two guys in the quarterback room that if one struggles, the other can step in. But I think they're either going to be what they were last year or they're going to be like picking 14th.
I think another
The
thing with
Lions
them
route?
is like
No kicker.
they go like they've won a lot of close games over the past handful of years. So then it's like, is that gonna kind of like even itself out?
That's a good question, actually. Like, is it actually going to even itself out? Because you saw, I'm trying to let me try to get the years straight. 2022, they won a ton of one-score games. 2023, all the one-score games went against them. 2024, they flipped back to winning all the one-score games. So it is interesting. Like, what does this look like if they are just only winning like half of their one-score games?
Live by the sword, die by the sword. That's what that is.
I mean, who doesn't remember the 2022 that comeback against, I think it was the Colts, was it maybe?
Yeah.
Like,
no, it was not. Oh yeah,
I think things have to balance at some point, right? So
yeah,
who knows? But then again, Kirk isn't on the team anymore, so I guess trends maybe don't necessarily kick off too well.
Well, we can move past the Vikings, and we can go to one of the best teams in the NFL. One of the teams that you kind of just want to root for because they've been the little guy their entire existence. The Detroit Lions, coming off of an excellent season last season. A little bit of disappointment in the playoffs, but, I mean, we won't talk about that. They didn't have a whole lot to address, but I think that they brought in a lot of guys that can add to depth. So, Justin, I guess their biggest acquisition was DJ Reed. I think that will be very helpful. But, Justin, I guess this is where I can hand it off to you in the draft department.
Yeah, because this is where the last several years the Lions have really starred. You know, they've been nailing all their picks, and I think they did a good job again. Tyreek Williams helps on the defensive line. They really need someone who can get after people other than Aiden Hutchinson. You know, we saw that last year. We see Tate Ratledge. Bobby, you can correct me if I got that wrong, but Tate Ratledge helps with the offensive line. By the way, this guy has a mullet number 69, so I like him already. And then
Detroit guy.
And then actually one of Bobby's guys during our draft show, he shouted this guy out. Isaac Tesla was a guy he was interested to see, thought could be a steal in the draft, and then what do you know? Third round, Lions took him. And then also I'm gonna butcher his last name, but the defensive lineman out of Boise State in the 6th round, I think, was a really good pick, too.
Ahmed
Hassanin.
There we go.
I think what we're looking at is a bunch of guys who can bite off some kneecaps.
That's the plan.
Still the most legendary.
And drink lots of coffee.
Yes.
Lots of coffee.
That guy has so much coffee in his system that, like, I don't think that medical professionals would say that you should model after his lifestyle.
Yes.
But, I mean, I'll run through a wall for the guy. They've gotten consistent in the front office. They've gotten consistency from the coaching staff. They're starting to see some players turn the corner in their career. Everything about this team still screams underdog, despite not necessarily being much of an underdog.
Not anymore. Now they're the number 1 seed in the NFC. So, Bobby, like, let's go to you. Obviously, we have Bobby of the TNT podcast on the show for the Lions portion. So we didn't get to shout you out before, but as a Lions fan, like, what excites you the most about the team besides Motor City Dan Campbell? Obviously, all of us get excited about him, but what excites you in terms of strengths for this team, and then what weaknesses worry you the most?
Well, what excites me is, like, I've been a Lions fan my entire life. I was 2 years old in 1991 when they won and went to the NFC Championship game. So then when they did what they did a few years ago, it brought me to tears, honestly, because and I know it's kind of crazy to say that, but, like, I'm so passionate about this team and I love this team. And it's just, when you're from the Detroit area, I'm from Flint originally, but, like, this team is a part of you. So the fact that they've risen through the just terrible, terrible nonsense that they were for so long. I'll be honest, I've watched every game, or been at the game since probably '06. And I mean, like, I watched every game of the 0-16 season, and it was difficult, obviously. But when they hired Dan Campbell, it was like, man, we finally got a guy who, like, resonates, and you're like, man, this guy gets it. and then you saw the Hard Knocks stuff and all that coming out, and you're like, man, this is a guy you could really play for, and a guy that you really really love. And then the things just start falling into place. Brad Holmes just drafts amazingly, like you guys laid out. And what we've done is we've created this culture and that embodies the city of Detroit and the whole state of Michigan, really. And I always tell a lot of my friends back home in Michigan, like the best teams from Detroit are the teams that embody the city. Every team, like all three of the Detroit Pistons teams that have won titles, have won when they were those gritty, tough, no nonsense Detroit type teams. And that's what this Lions team embodies when it comes to the city of Detroit. Obviously, you look at our offense. I mean, we got studs on that side of the ball, but I mean, you'd be you'd be foolish if you didn't say you're worried about Frank Ragnow retiring. And we got to put in shift our offensive line around and play a rookie in Tate Ratledge at guard and a young guy in Christian Mahogany who only has a couple starts at guard and Graham Glasgow is playing center. We have two of the best tackles in the NFL, but at the same time, it's like we went from having arguably the best offensive line in the NFL to now it's a little bit of a question mark.
Well, and with Brian Flores running a double A gap blitz, I don't think tackles really matter in that situation.
True, but Jared Goff has done a tremendous job against that in the past, his communication aspect, and he's a very, very smart guy. So we've been able to handle that pretty well, I feel like. But without having Frank Ragnow was a huge part in that. So I think that's going to be really, really interesting to see moving forward what that looks like, especially against Flores and the Vikings, like you said.
Yeah, I mean Jared Goff. I grew up a Rams fan. When Jared Goff went to the Rams, I actually wanted Carson Wentz. But I think one thing that Jared Goff was able to do in LA was just kind of learn how to be a different style of quarterback, be able to adapt to something other than what he was used to. And when he got to Detroit, they allowed him to go back to who he was, but he never forgot what he learned in LA, and it's made him take that next step up.
I think that's right, Matt. When that trade was first rumored to be happening, I was like, I mean, is Goff cooked? Is this kind of like he's on his way out? But then he did the exact opposite. He's been tearing it up in Detroit, and I think the city has embraced him, but then he's also in turn embraced the city and kind of, to Bobby's point, like modeled that mentality that's even driven deeper by Dan Campbell, so it's all the pieces gelling together.
I mean, Jared Goff is a chant, like throughout the city.
Yeah,
it is a thing they chant, like at not even football games, but other places. It really embodies like what they're going for and what they represent as a whole.
Yeah, that city just loves that guy, and I think, not to keep bringing it up, but I think that he may be another guy that could get a statue outside the stadium in a franchise that doesn't have a deep history of quarterbacks. I don't think it's that hard for him. If he just brings success to the city, I think he could be a legend there.
What's a Motor City Dan Campbell statue going to look like?
Do you think he's holding coffee, or do you think he's breaking through a brick wall?
I thought it was
There's so many ways.
Yeah.
in his mouth.
He's drinking it out of...
or a cigar or whatever you want to give him.
Yeah, I will say, Bobby, as a Bengals fan, and they be messing around. The ownership does from time to time in a very frustrating way. They're like if they move Cincinnati, if they move the Bengals out of Cincinnati, coming up to you, big dog. And it's go Lions from there.
Lions.
Welcome.
I mean, the Lions are the epitome of this show. Lions are everything that we stick up for when we talk about sports. I mean, their last prior to the last year, their last playoff win was 1957. So it's a team that you can't root against unless you're a Bears fan, I guess. But
I root for the Detroit Lions, man.
You know what's funny?
There's so much heart.
I live in Illinois now, and my wife is a diehard Bears fan, so we have some fun with that. but I, I everybody that I run into here in Illinois, well, I shouldn't say everybody, most people will tell you like, hey, we're rooting for you guys just because you guys haven't done it. Like it's I think it's just one of those things where it's like it's cool to see somebody new, especially a franchise that has just been like the arguably the worst franchise in the history of professional sports, honestly. Um, just kind of rise from the ashes and be what they are right
Watch them just rip off like 14 straight Super Bowls.
I'd be all for it.
Yeah.
There will be no more
Funny
Detroit.
how the NFC. There really wouldn't. It wouldn't make it through the second one.
At least your stadium isn't known as the factory of sadness, right? So like, there's
true.
definitely a lot more stuff going for you.
It is aging pretty quickly, though.
I will say it's a beautiful
Stadium.
place. It'll be interesting to see though in a handful of years what they're going to do because they built all the professional stadiums right next to each other. So in probably the mid to late 2030s, when that conversation has to arise about a new stadium, we're really intrigued to see kind of how that goes.
Just rip the roof off and redo it.
Yes. Play at Eastern Michigan on the gray turf.
Yes.
That would be dope.
There you go.
Oh yes, there we go. Give us NFL games of the gray turf. Make it happen.
I mean, if the Vikings had to play at the Minnesota Gopher Stadium, then why can't the Lions play in Eastern Michigan?
In a pickle.
Absolutely.
Ann Arbor's not too far.
Right.
No one wants to play in that stadium. Go to the gray turf. It's more character.
Isn't that the largest stadium in the U.S.? I think
Yes.
technically.
Yep.
Justin, can you confirm?
I actually don't know which one's the largest one. Is it Michigan's? Or-
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah,
it's
I'm
Michigan.
I'm pretty sure it's one of the biggest in the world or in the Western
Yeah.
Hemisphere, aside from the Azteca in Mexico City. I'm pretty
Yep.
sure.
Over 110,000 seats. That's bigger than some countries, dude. That's a massive stadium. Although
It's a sovereign, yeah.
the way that it's constructed, it's not super loud because it's very like wide, so the noise kind of just escapes. I mean, 110,000 people rooting you on. How can you lose?
You enter the stadium at row 73.
Oh dear God.
Nuts. That is nuts to think about. Row 73.
Well, switching back to football for just a second. Where do we see this division ending? What order are we looking at?
We probably should set an order here. We'll let the guests go first, and then Tony, and then Matt, and then I'll put my order last.
Okay, hold on. Let me give you a quick. Let's see. Hold on. For kicks, let's just look up the end of what Vegas says. So Vegas seemingly has it going Lions, Packers, Vikings, Bears. I think I'd like to say that the Packers, the Lions stay on top, but I just don't know with the coaching changes and personnel, if that necessarily keeps up. And it provides room for maybe the Packers to slip up on top, maybe, possibly. But aside from that, I think that's how it's going to go. I think the Bears most likely remain down at the bottom, and the top three try and duke it out in some category or another.
I was going to say that exact same order, honestly, but I will say this division is so competitive that I think it's going to be really, really close no matter what. The Lions aren't going 15-2 again. The Vikings aren't going to go 14-3. It's going to be very, very close. And I agree. I think the Packers have what it takes to make that next step up. But yeah, I was going to go with that exact same, the Lions, Packers, Vikings, Bears, but it's super, super close.
And just to add another thing on here before Tony goes, this division will play the NFC East and the AFC North this year. So that just adds on to the toughness of these schedules. Yeah.
I think I agree with both Bobby and Joe. I think if we were looking at it on paper and, we could flip a coin a million times and it would be different, the top two and the bottom two could flip, back and forth. I think there's a lot of scenarios where, you could project and say that the Packers do win. They do win the North. Or, Chicago even beats out the Vikings a little bit. So I think it'll definitely be interesting. But, the fact that we can look at each team and say, there's no clear, go ahead winner. I think it's Detroit, Green Bay. It's tough.
Say it, Tony. Say it.
My heart is saying Bears, then the Vikings.
There we go.
I do think that's actually very plausible. I'm putting the Vikings just above, and I hate to go with Vegas. I like mimicking Vegas loses me a lot of money when I do end up betting that way. But I also don't have a whole lot of faith in JJ McCarthy right now. Tony, you had mentioned that he's been doing pretty well, but he actually has been struggling.
Yeah, he has.
Week. So
it's the
when
aura.
Tony is feeding lies to this show for his Michigan propaganda.
This is misinformation. His presence in the locker room has had an impact. That hasn't translated to the field.
Yeah. I think if you have two seemingly similar roster types, it's going to come down to quarterback play, and I think Jordan Love edges out J.J. McCarthy every time. And then at that point, I think the Vikings as a whole in the roster are better than the Bears as a whole on their roster.
And they have Kevin O'Connell.
But we don't know what to expect from Ben Johnson, so we'll see if yeah. I guess I agree with Vegas and Joe and Bobby and not Tony, I guess.
All right, I'm going to be the one that goes different here. I'm sorry, guys. Sorry to the guest of our show, but I have the Green Bay Packers taking this division home. I have the Lions finishing second, the Vikings third, and the Bears fourth. It's going to be a competitive division, very competitive. And what gives the Packers the edge over the Lions to me, because I was really torn between the two. The Lions had to face the Chiefs, and they also had to face sorry, I just lost my train of thought. They have to face the Chiefs, and they also have to face the Buccaneers, and they have to face the Rams. Those are three tough teams that the Packers do not have to face this year. So
and
that is also
the Rams are going to get Parsons.
Well, that's just a rumor. We'll see about that. But anyways, those are three tough teams that were in the playoffs last year, looked pretty set to make the playoffs again this year, that the Lions have to face. The Packers do not have to face them. That might be the edge they need to steal this division.
Yeah, I mean,
look at our road schedule
earlier.
My goodness.
Yeah,
Green Bay opens the season at Baltimore, at Cincinnati, at Kansas City the week after Cincinnati, at Washington on the road. The Rams, not only did you draw all these tougher teams, but you play them on the road.
And the NFC North and AFC North are just rock fights. Mm-hmm. And to not just add to rock fights,
it's full blown street brawl.
Yeah, and when you play in Chicago, at least you get the elements. The others, not so much. At Green Bay, I guess. But
I feel like that's a dig.
I like weather.
We're waiting on this new stadium, Matt. We're waiting. We're getting there.
Well, that is our NFC North episode. Chicago Joe, thank you for joining us as our Bears correspondent.
As always.
Bobby, gonna give you a sec to plug the program if you want.
Well, thanks, guys. As always, appreciate joining you. For those who don't know, I host the TNT College Football Podcast. It's a national college football podcast. I've become connected with a lot of UConn football and their fan base, so I cover UConn a lot as well. Currently, I'm going through breaking down. I do this every year. This is year 5 of breaking down every FBS program, all 136 of them. I believe I'm on number 107 or whatever it is today. I mean, it's quite an undertaking, but it's a lot of fun and I love it. And I'm looking to potentially produce a magazine next year with it all. So we'll see how that goes. I haven't announced that to anybody yet. So I guess I could. It's an exclusive. It's in the works potentially.
Heard it first here, folks.
Yeah.
So is this like Dane Brugler's The Beast, but in college format for college teams?
A little bit, yeah. I guess you could say that. Yes.
Okay. There you go.
I'm a former coach. So I kind of dig into more of the coaching and player aspect, I don't go into much of the gambling and those type of things. I kind of look at it more from this is the overhead view and what we could potentially see happen from that perspective, and I kind of dive into it.
Very cool.
Well, gentlemen, thank you for joining. Everybody else, follow us at Updog Sports Talk. Bobby, what's your handle?
At TNT College Foot 1.
Go give Bobby a follow. Great content. We have good content too, so don't forget about us. We
Absolutely.
are wherever you get your podcast. We're on Reddit. Feel free to also post on our Reddit. It's not just for us. It's for anybody who wants to talk any level of sports. So hop on there and talk ball. And then, yeah, we'll catch you guys in the fall when we start doing our live shows and our AFC North coming soon. So thanks, guys.
Later. Thanks for